Great, thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you guys for being here. Like, I'm wondering who we are competing with, because I actually were very much looking forward to have Lukasz on stage today, because to me he really is one of the legends of the German startup scene. He was one of the most important people starting up this whole ecosystem for startups and entrepreneurs we have here in Berlin these days. And since, like as we heard already, he also was deeply involved in co-founding some of the most successful German startups. So I guess we can learn a lot from him, not only about entrepreneurship and building startups, but also about how Berlin became what it is today, and about his current projects and the technology involved there. So thank you for being here again, Lukasz.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let me perhaps, like we heard it quickly in the introduction, but I want to look again at all the successes and startups you've been working at and working for. And it basically all started with Spreadshirt, like a company that helps you to customize T-shirts and many other products these days and sell them online. But like after that, I think you also did a very interesting thing that many, especially German people in the audience, might know, and that is you built up Gründerszene. And Gründerszene is the biggest and the most important, definitely, like online magazine about entrepreneurship and startups in Germany. And it actually started as his personal blog. So I remember very well when Lukasz said, hey, I'm gonna become a blogger, and I call my blog Gründerszene. And these days it's really a huge magazine, which was also sold to a huge publishing house a couple of years ago, Axel Springer, and is like basically the daily news source for us here in Germany in the startup scene. And then like basically through all that time, Lukasz was a very active business angel, supporting lots and lots of startups and entrepreneurs. Mostly here in Germany, there's companies like Trivago, companies like StudiVZ, so the German Facebook of its time, or companies like My Müsli, Brands for Friends, Mr. Specs, Madvertise, Sponsored Pay, now called Fiber, Käuferportal, many more companies Lukasz supported back then and helped build up, and most of them sold very successfully. But I think that the most well-known thing people associate you with is the founding of Delivery Hero, like one of the biggest online ordering services for food, which is like operating in a lot of countries around the world, and probably well known to many of you. But today I want to talk to you about what you're doing now, and that is a little different than all the other projects before. And it's for you right now. It's all about mobility right now, and the future of mobility. So Lukasz right now is building Circ, which was like just recently, a few days ago, renamed from Flash, and it's a scooter company. One of many scooter companies who are competing for this exciting new market. And on the side, you're also supporting a lot of other like mobility startups, like Volocopter, who are building a flying taxi, so to say, and also Miles, which is a car sharing business. And I'm asking myself, like, why are you doing this? Like, I mean, it's a great time of the year to spend your time on Ibiza instead of traveling around the world for business reasons. So why, after all these successes, are you focusing on this topic now?
So like, yeah, it's all about technology, I want to say. So I started like with e-commerce companies, as you described, basically helping to build up the entrepreneurial scene. And I became an entrepreneur originally to be at the forefront of, like, on the frontier of progress. And then as a successful entrepreneur, it's a good question, like, what keeps you going? And first of all, that's what I do. So like, it's good to have a job and everything, but. And then people want to create value. So I also want to create value because if this is what keeps you going. And I've been looking like from a high level at what's going on in the world in technology, and also like for me as an entrepreneur. And there's a pattern. Like we in Europe, to be successful, we need to start international businesses. This was the case with Delivery Hero, to take it global, to compete basically on a global level. We have great engineering talent, we have great technologies in Europe, but we're not necessarily great in translating those technologies into businesses. Yeah? When you look at like all the large internet companies, all the giants of the internet from the internet era basically, they're not necessarily based in Europe. Yeah? Be it like Google, be it Facebook, or even like from the computer era, there's barely anything. There's maybe an SAP. So the giants are not from Europe. And why is that? Yeah, we have great engineers, but what we're lacking is like two things. We're lacking like some of the business culture, or like maybe not lacking, lagging behind in terms of like the learning curve. So the business culture, but also the capital markets. Yeah? And as a successful entrepreneur, basically, this is what I understand. This is what my talents are. So I know how to build large organizations and like translate basically execution power. So like this is the business culture point, and then also like to, basically to drive the capital markets forward and to attract capital. So this is the pattern that I looked for, taking like the engineering talent and supporting it to bring in great products to the market. And I started to look like 3-4 years ago, and one of the first things I sort of I found was Volocopter, which is one of the urban air taxis about to come. And this is how I entered the field of mobility. And basically, Volocopter and like the breed of companies that are coming there, it's like those are really cool pieces of technology. It's really very exciting because.
But you haven't been flying, right? It's not yet flying.
You can fly it as a test pilot, but it's not certified yet for commercial use. Nothing is, and it's like technologically, it's a really interesting problem because if you have to prove to be commercially viable, so like. If any of these companies would push it, you could bring like a sports vehicle to the market fast, yeah. But like it's not about the sports vehicle; it's about like commercial. This is like what's interesting to bring it like to everybody, and you have basically to prove to the regulator that it's safe. Yeah? Safe means like you're allowed to fail one time in a billion. Yeah? So imagine you fly 1 billion hours. And I didn't do the math, like you cannot do this in the lifetime, yeah? To fly 1 billion hours. Then you have like one probability of failure. Yeah? That means basically you can fly all your life and you will never crash. This is what the regulator wants to know. Yeah? And this is basically a computer science problem because of like this new breed of flying machines are basically flying computers. So like traditionally the pilot would control the vehicle, the control surfaces, like he would control whatever, the flaps, the ailerons, and today like it's the computer basically regulating how fast the rotors would spin. But you end up, as a result, you end up with like affordable, quiet, green, and very convenient means of transport. Anyway, so this is like how I entered this field, and the gap like coming from e-commerce and marketplaces to building aircraft is quite a large one. Yeah, so plus like I've been used to do things that scale very fast, that have like fast time to markets. This is not a fast time to market. And then like last year, about spring, came about like what we call, you said like yet another scooter company, or you said one more scooter company.
There's a lot of companies competing in that space, right?
In that space, yeah. But we don't call it a scooter company because of that wouldn't sound.
Of course you don't.
We don't. We call it like micro mobility. Mm-hmm. And this is really fascinating, like how fast this field is growing and what it means. And micromobility means basically like lightweight vehicles that you can use for the last few miles of your travel. And since I'm involved in mobility, it's really fascinating to see like some of those numbers. For example, more than every year we create and put onto the streets of the planet more than 100 million cars. Imagine like this is yeah, just an astounding number. And half of the trips by these cars are like only a few miles or a few kilometers, yeah, so about 3-4 kilometers. And 70% of those trips have only one single person in it. And then you have to deduct the chauffeur because of like, often it's one passenger plus one driver, right? So like, basically the vehicle that we use for this use case, it's like totally off. Yeah? And then like the business model, plus the business model of the car companies is to sell you a new car. So like they're set up in a way to be able to sell as many cars as possible and basically educate us to buy a new car every 3-4 years or whatever. Yeah? And then came about like this beautiful little, very simple device, which is the electric kick scooter. Yeah, and this like has been instant hit, and basically the product market fit here is like just very, yeah, it's a very strong product market fit. So I'm sure most of you have been able to enjoy one of these today. It feels like very natural to go
Not
on
in
it.
Germany yet, though, but since this is a very international conference, perhaps in other countries. But why do you think all of this comes together now? I mean, obviously we need the hardware. That's for sure. But
first of all, we have the hardware. I mean, what we have, like a few trends come together. Like we have the mobile phone is ubiquitous now, right? We have IoT, like to control and track the devices. We have electrical motors, yeah, that are like strong enough. Arguably, all of this existed already 3, 4, 5 years ago. So good question. Why did it come now? I think it's just random. Yeah, it's just like randomness. Funnily enough, it started with, and maybe this is a good example of like of like over-engineering things, because of micromobility. On some level, it started with a bike. Yeah, so bike is basically a micromobility device. But like on another level, it started with the Segway. Yeah, which is like technologically very advanced. It has like all the self-balancing technology, and it's really pretty an advanced device because of when it has the self-balancing, it's not allowed to fail because of when it fails, you trip. Yeah, so it has already to have some redundancy built in, like that. Like if the computer of the Segway crashes, you have like a blue screen, so to say, then you trip. But you're in traffic. You're in traffic. There are cars around you, yeah, and they're very heavy, they're very fast, so you're not allowed to trip.
So in the end, what you're doing is also like potentially risking human lives, or there is like you need to be very careful, right?
Exactly. So those like all of these vehicles, being like the Segways or the kick scooters, they have to be safe. Yeah, the brake has always to work. I mean, like if there've been crazy accidents. That have been due to the product, yeah. So like one of them had like the anti-theft mechanism kicking in the middle of the journey, yeah, because for whatever reason the computer thought this is now like about to be stolen, yeah. So it locks the wheels, it locks your front wheel, and people would fly over the handlebar.
But
luckily nobody got too badly hurt. But it can kill you, right? Because you can fly in front of a car.
What I generally find very interesting about this whole space is this intersection of really innovative hardware coming together with software, obviously. So, like because you were just talking about these things, how much are you involved into developing these devices yourself? I've heard that you're not taking some stock device, but that you've invested a lot of time into improving the scooters, which is one of the biggest issues right now from what we hear for scooter companies, that they break all the time and perhaps even worse.
Yeah, I mean, like again, like so like there are two stories here. One is a business story, and the other is a technology story and a product story. Yeah. So like from a business, it's just like a blue ocean, a new thing that is out there, and we have 100 million cars, and maybe I don't know, less than 1 million of scooters, a few 100,000 scooters every year. So like this is about to grow, and all in a very fast pace. So basically, this whole industry does not exist yet. The supply chain does not exist. The safety regulations do not exist properly. This is why we still don't have it in Germany. We will have it in a couple of weeks. So all of these things don't exist yet. And so from our perspective, it's a relatively complicated business model. What you have to design the vehicle, because nobody designed the vehicle yet for sharing. Nobody designed the vehicle yet for heavy duty. Yeah? Then you have to what we call homologate it. basically prove to yourself, the regulator, your customer that it's safe. Then you have to produce it. You have to produce it at scale. This includes like quality control, all of that. Again, it has to be like homologated because of if there's a production mistake and they put you on the road with a faulty scooter, with a faulty micromobility device, yeah, this is a potential hazard. So like, also this has to be done. Then like it has a layer of connectivity, like IoT basically, yeah. So like that we can communicate with the vehicle. All of that, so that's another piece of technology.
How do you develop this?
Then it continues. Then you go to, you need basically a consumer app. Okay, that's commodity, like how to register your credit card, all of that. But in the background, there's one more piece of software, which is like basically the operations. Yeah. So you have to put the scooters on the street. You have to collect them for recharging. And this is like you have to operate like some companies do it with like the gig economy. We doing like utilizing our own workforce, but like they need tools to operate all of that. Then when you decide like where to put a vehicle, you need what we call location intelligence. Yeah, so this is a very exciting piece of software, so to say. That lets us know and helps us to determine, okay, where to put those, where they're going to be utilized. So if you take all of those together, and I guess I forgot one or two, so it's quite a bit.
And are you doing all of this like on your own, or for example, when it comes to the hardware and let's say the software that controls the vehicle, like how much of that is done by, I don't know, in Asia, and how much of that is still like being developed by you guys?
Yeah, so we're co-design with companies in Asia. So it's a proprietary design based on like whatever they have there already. It's produced right now mostly in Shenzhen. We're setting ourselves up to be able to partially produce, partially assemble also in other parts of the world. Sometimes it's required regulatory-wise. Here also we touch what are the mega patterns of politics, basically, yeah, the increasing trade wars or whatever, or in a country like Brazil, for example, they're pretty sealed off. So like, I think if you want to buy an iPhone in Brazil, you pay almost double because if they have such high tariffs, and the same then applies to those micromobility devices. So like, we co-design them. Yeah, also like co-design the software and do all of it proprietary. And all of that right now, you see the kick scooter, the electrical kick scooter. But what we're going to end up with is like a small fleet of vehicle types. You want also to be able to cover other use cases. Maybe you want a two-person scooter. Maybe you want something that can handle a little bit of luggage, and maybe you want something that handles a little bit of bad weather. Because of basically to use it in your daily routine, in your daily commute, it has to cover those use cases. If I cannot rely on it, then I cannot replace whatever means of transport I have today 100%. And this is the goal, to enable this means of transport to replace whatever you use today by 100%.
I mean, one thing is certain, that if the hardware would have been ready, let's say 10 or 20 years ago, then we would perhaps, many of us would have these electrical kick scooters, but we would probably own them still like we own our cars. Typically, but the most interesting thing about this is that you are like really able to share them and to distribute them. And this whole, you just talked about this, that this piece of software that tells you where to put scooters, where they will be needed, is one of the perhaps most interesting, most sophisticated pieces of software. And I don't know, can you tell us something more about that? I guess it's probably using some kind of machine learning, AI, algorithm stuff, and all of the nice things we're talking about these days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's it. And then what you need is a lot of data, right? So the question is like, where to get the data from, which type of data you get.
I mean, and this is typically something that like US companies were best at in the past, right? So that's also, I think it would be very cool to see if you guys and perhaps also other European startups in that space can actually compete on these software technology things with the providers from the US, because typically that's what they're really good at. And do you struggle with, I don't know, like for example, finding the right kind of talent and developers who are able to bring in these skills here, or how do you compete with the US companies?
No, so I would not say that we struggle. First of all, there are like a few layers. Yes, we are a European company and all of that. Is it competition? Is it like co-opetition? Yeah? From my perspective, the world is a global place. Yeah. And we should be one, yeah. So there should not be trade barriers. There should be not animosities and all of that. In the end, we want like to live together peacefully and and compete, create, and do all of these things. But so in that sense, we're also connected to like Silicon Valley. We have a few investments there, like in this field. So there's like a lively exchange, and the same applies to our Chinese partners. And basically, they still have a reputation somehow. They're Chinese, but they're excellent companies there as well, and they're doing an excellent job in scaling fast and like high quality. So we are embedded like in this global environment, so to say. And it's always challenging to get it right. Yeah, we have like a high aspiration for quality and all of that. What helps us and what makes us special is like 2 or 3 things. One is that we really focus on the product. So we're product first, so to say, product and technology. This is at the core of our DNA, of myself and my co-founders. And then like people want to join something that is like special in some way. So like, I guess like as a startup, we're special because of like we're very ambitious. We want to create like a European champion that is a global player in micromobility. I mean, basically creates the world's leader. Yeah, and some other companies maybe have been there before us and whatever. Like this is not what worries me. Yeah, we also don't look too much at the competition. We look at ourselves and what we can do. Like so like. And this is like what gets people interested, because of like they know they can be part of something that is not yet another startup, but that is basically something special in terms of like size and ambition. And then the last thing is like that we are addressing a very urgent issue, a very urgent problem of the globe, and basically that it's like heating up and getting warmer and warmer, and we use like energy and resources in ways that like evolved how they evolved, but they're not necessarily sustainable and smart. So like to be part of this revolution, sort of like, also helps. And then obviously it's a consumer product. It's something that touches your life, so it's very easy to identify with it. Most of us like use our product ourselves. I still own cars. I don't know why, because of I had them before, but I don't use them. Yeah, I use car sharing today, and I'm looking forward to use the scooters in a few weeks here soon when they're legal in Germany.
You're obviously not yet using them, I guess, here in Berlin. But like perhaps it would be interesting also especially because perhaps for people in the German audience, since you cannot drive them here, perhaps to give others an idea about the impact you already had and have. I think I just read that you crossed like 1 million rides within like a very short time span. So can you give us perhaps again some numbers, some ideas about what you guys are already doing, and perhaps also where you're doing it? Like how you're structured, which countries are you active in right now? And
so we launched in February, had like the 1 million rides last week. We are started with the southern countries, so like we're in Portugal, Spain, France, Switzerland, Austria, and then also Belgium, and now about to launch in Germany, Italy. But basically it's going to be all across Europe. We're also in a few Nordic countries now. And then we're launching Middle East and a few selected Asian countries. And via an investment, we have a sister company in Latin America. This is the company Grow. So basically, it's less than a year old, but already now has a global footprint. Yeah. And like as an entrepreneur, it's great like to see those numbers and to see those numbers growing very fast. Again, we did not exist. we did not exist a year ago. We have not been live half a year ago, and today we serve like up to 100,000 trips per day. Yeah, and we know this is going to continue to grow and be very fast. So soon we will serve like 1 million trips a day. So like it's
how many are you right
fascinating. I mean, if you're in the midst of it, it's really fascinating to
how many people
imagine
are
that. And so like we are like in the offices we're about 200 people now, and then we have, since we use our own operations, we're another like about 200 people in the operations. So on the operations side of things.
And like, who is located where? Like since you're very international, I guess you have offices in all these countries. But like, so for example, the software side, the technology side, is it besides the hardware parts? Obviously, is it located here in Berlin, or where is it?
So it's mainly in Berlin. We also have a little bit of development in Madrid, in Spain. So like it's, but like the core is here in Berlin, and then we're looking to. We also have like some obviously in Asia.
And like, since this is a technology conference, and since there are like mostly people in the audience, I guess, who are involved with developing software products, like, is there some specific kind of developer or like people with digital skills that you're looking for, and why should, I mean, you told us a bit about why someone would join your company, and I guess that were very interesting points. And who are you looking for? Like, if there's somebody in the audience who thinks, wow, I really like this idea of building the future of mobility, like...
Yeah, passionate people, basically. Passionate people who are top of their class, top in whatever they do, and are motivated. And are motivated by contributing to creating something like special for Europe, for the world, and also in terms of like mobility revolution for mankind, and are driven by, like us, are a little bit crazy about achievement, yeah. So, and enjoy the journey. So that's what we look for. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a great ending. So thank you for being here. Thank you for telling us some more things about your company. I'm sure we will soon see a lot more of your devices out on the streets here in Germany, but probably all over the world. And we're really happy to be part of this exciting story. And if you want to be part of this exciting story or have a chat with Lukasz, I guess we will be standing over there at the stage for a couple of minutes now. So thank you also very much for being here and listening to us.